Hi, I'm Paige Carter. I'm the 3D artist at Supergiant Games, working on Hades, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of my 3D character process from 2D art to full in-game model, featuring Nyx, everyone's favorite night mom, and one of my favorite characters to work on. So starting off, for a lot of the characters, I base the model just solely on Jen's portrait art for the character. Nyx is one of those cases, so we don't always do in-house turnarounds or anything. So, which is kind of fun, because I kind of get to invent what's in the back of the character sometimes. So to start off, I'll use a base model, typically of a pre-existing character, to adjust into the form of the new character, adjust their facial features. So kind of a fun fact about Hades characters, NPC characters, is they're all kind of either modified Thanatoses or modified Megaras. So in this case, Nyx is a modified Megara, or I think modified Eurydice directly. So I typically put the portrait art in, I stick them behind my ZBrush file while I'm working, and I use the see-through function of ZBrush so that I can compare their facial features as closely as possible from the 2D art to the 3D model. So that's what I did with Nyx here. As I was blocking her out in ZBrush, I typically block out as much as possible in ZBrush before bringing it into Maya. And then once taking it into Maya, I can refine the model and retopo all of the pieces so that they deform well and render quickly. And from that point, I can UV the model and get it into texture and substance. So this is Nyx's final model with topology wireframe overlay. We use Subdiv in Hades because we do pre-rendered characters, which is a little bit different than typical game art workflow and kind of has a different set of challenges. I think figuring out the night sky batwing hair was my favorite part of modeling Nyx. So after the model is complete and I'm happy with it and the UVs are there, I will import her into Substance, where I immediately turn off the lighting and stick a base color on the model, which is typically just the character's skin tone. And then I also bake textures within Substance, so I'll bake an ambient occlusion map, a curvature map, and a thickness map, which I'll overlay over the base color so that I can actually see where the character's features are. And then from that point, I stick basic color blocks in their own separate layer so I can adjust the colors to better match the 2D art or to better match the lighting in the game. And then after all of the colors, all the base colors are there, I put a black line art layer on top of everything. And then I go in and hand paint all of the black line work to try and match the 2D look of the character as much as possible, which is my favorite part. My favorite part is doing all of the line work, and especially on their faces, because I think it really makes the characters come to life. And then after all the line work is there, I create a new multiply layer for the shadows. And then once I get the shadows to a good spot, I'll create another overlay layer to do all of the highlights. And then usually that's the last step for characters in Substance, once the highlights are there and everything is matching up. Sometimes I'll add an extra layer to do kind of the color sprinkles that Jen and Joanne stick on their 2D art, which are basically just like little flecks of like bright neon color that you would never see from the game view, but they're fun to add. So after I'm happy with the substance texture, I will import it into Maya with a just a basic V-Ray shader. Now, I typically do the character's textures before I start rigging because so much of the character detail is in the textures. I want to make sure that nothing stretches or deforms weirdly with the texture on the character. And then how we do rigs is we use M-Gear, and we use the biped guides that it comes with, which create a really nice basic rig to build on top of. So I'll line up all of those joints with all of the character's points of articulation, and then I'll add all of the accessories and clothing or earrings or pauldron joints on top of that, so that Tin has as much control of the character as possible. And a lot of times we don't really do a very complex facial rig for characters because they are so small on the screen that any sort of emotion or anything isn't really super readable, and so it kind of helps us get through the rigging process faster. So once the character rig and textures are in a good spot, I like to import in our orthographic camera that we use for all of our pre-rendered characters, which matches the perspective of the in-game orthographic view. And I like to do test renders both to finalize and during the model process so that I can get an overview of or a preview of what the character will look like actually in the game. And because we have such a graphic style for Hades in particular, we use a V-Ray Toon Shader, which adds a black outline over everything. So that just helps the characters, one, look more like their portrait counterparts, and two, helps them mesh well with all of Joanne's environment art, which has that really graphic, comic-y feeling to it. So I'll do renders within the orthographic view, usually a front and back 3/4 view, and then I will also do perspective renders with the final render look. One for Jen and the rest of the team to see how the characters are looking, and two also just because it's fun for me to be able to compare my 3D art more directly to Jen's portrait art. So sometimes once it's rigged, I'll pose the character like their portrait art and try and see if I can get it as one-to-one as possible. Even though their proportions are a little bit changed, typically the 3D characters, their heads are bigger and they kind of appear a little bit short because their features are kind of stretched a little bit in orthographic, and also we want them to read from really far away. So this is kind of the final comparison from 2D art to 3D art. And then after that, it goes to Jen for review. And if everything goes well, it goes to Tin for animation. So that was a quick overview of my character workflow from 2D concept to 3D in-game model. I hope you enjoyed learning about the process of our characters, and I hope you love Night Mama Nix as much as we do. And thanks for watching.